Posed another way, how can a community be coaxed into accepting a woke agenda that is opposed to its most fundamental values? And how can the Republican Party be coaxed into defending the head administrator purveying that agenda? We are getting there. Yes.
The guy's doing it. He's been a Democrat in Florida for 9 years. I got a restraining order against him. Cool. Next thing, man, there's a bald-headed guy, actually restrained.
Rick Wilkins, you just lost every bald vote in the county, mister. We'll connect. Is it cool for him to say stuff like that about me?
The enemy is not in this room.
Oh, okay. That's more like it. Pat Bradford, what do you have to say?
How do each of you plan to combat the people within this room and the Republican Party that constantly throw rocks at elected officials that are Republicans, that constantly throw rocks at us, the candidates, while they're running after the primary, between the primary and the general? How do you plan to combat that?
That sounds like the opposite. Niven, what do you have to say?
And there's always going to be people that are disruptors.
You got 10 minutes and I'm calling the police if you don't get in there. And I ain't playing.
Oh, yeah, I see your point. But surely there is a place for honest debate within the Republican Party. I mean, we're all on the same team, right?
There's a difference between people that are good-hearted conservatives that are in here debating out the issues, trying to figure out what's best for the party.
Right, like the New Hanover County Republican Women's Club.
I thought they were all the same group. Isn't this
No, they're not affiliated with it. They're an offshoot. They say they're grassroots, they're concerned citizens. But the craziest infiltrated Democrat you ever saw. I had 4 people, I'm not lying, I had 4 people running for Board of Ed. One of them's over there, Melissa, whatever. Her handler made a fake website to go against how bad a vision.
So it is very important to run a tight ship. I mean, if I'm the Democrat Party, I would love to send people or people of people into the other camp and try to cause as much disruption as possible.
Lisa, she went to go in the door, she checked her, and Lisa pushed out the door. That's what happened.
Pushed her?
And I watched it. Yeah, pushed
Okay,
her.
well, the thing is that...
No, there's no thing. You either get her in, or there's some
Okay, I know. I was...
There's not going to be any tolerance for the types of people within the party that continually trash the candidates both during the general election and after they're elected. The enemy is not in this room. If they're precinct chairs, then we're going to have to take a good hard look at what to do about that. The enemy is not in this room.
NHCA-Team.
Yeah, we were there. We also supported some Democrat school board members.
Okay, so let me just get the tally here. I'm a Democratic infiltrator. Pete LaFawn's a Democratic infiltrator. Melissa Mason is handled by us. The New Hanover County Republican Women's Club. Crazy infiltrated Democrats. I don't know if that's different than Democratic infiltrators. They're Democrats who've been infiltrated. Would that make them Republicans? I don't know, but it doesn't sound good. And then, the NHCA-Team. They support Democrats. Man, I guess the only grassroots organization left in the county is Tide Turners. You know, the well-funded political action committee that's controlled by a small handful of people who also happen to be all throughout the executive committee and occupy crucial staff positions within the GOP? Sounds pretty grassroots to me. So, Will, just clarify it for me. Who are we fighting?
The enemy is the progressive.
Oh, you mean like Dr. Charles Faust? Is he who we should be fighting? Will? Is he who we should be fighting? Rick? Is he who we should be fighting? Tide Turners? Now, some of you may be confused at this point. At this point, I imagine if you've seen all of these videos or some of these videos, You're thinking, hey, Ashley, is this about a petty beef between you and the GOP just because they took you to court? Or is this about serious issues in the party and in the county? And the answer is yes, it's both. It's petty, and it's as serious as our children's lives. And what I want everyone to realize is how the petty keeps getting in the way of the serious. And it's gotta stop.
We need to be unified on the things that matter. And we're not going to get...
Well said, Nevin. Now, let me integrate the two storylines by just going through a quick timeline of how everything has played out so far. Timeline. GOP protects woke administrator, sabotages grassroots candidate. April 28, 2022. Melissa Mason signs the Education Over Indoctrination Pledge, which calls to fire Faust.
The enemy is the progressive.
May 17, 2022. Melissa Mason wins in the primary. Mason campaign complains to Will Connect that there has been a barrage of online abuse from agents of the PAC Tide Turners and asks for him to bring a stop to the abuse. Soon after the primary, Rick Wilkins pressures Mason to drop the Fire Faust plank from her platform.
The enemy is the progressive.
June 23rd, Rick Wilkins physically assaults Ashley Strand outside the GOP. Will Connect is informed of the altercation and again is asked by Strand to address the attacks on Melissa Mason. LaFond advises Strand to press charges. Strand declines. In the interest of party unity, Connect asks Strand and LaFond to reconsider the Fire Faust position.
The enemy is the progressive.
July 18. At the GOP HQ, Wayne Gibson physically assaults Ashley Strand, verbally accosts Melissa Mason. Chelsea Cooley verbally accosts her as well, and prevents Strand from reaching Mason physically when he perceives she is in distress. Strand reports both assaults to the police. July 20. Strand tells Will Connect he is going to file assault charges against Wilkins and Gibson. July 21. Gibson threatens to remove GOP support from Mason's campaign if she doesn't drop Fire Faust from her platform.
The enemy is the progressive.
They threaten Strand with 5 no-contact orders and threaten to smear Mason in the press. July 22, Wilkins, Gibson, and Cooley Altman file no-contact orders against Ashley Strand. July 24, Connect admits to coordinating the no-contact orders and encourages Mason to consider running as a moderate so she can govern as a conservative, mentioning the Fire Faust issue specifically as an issue that will hurt her.
The enemy is the progressive.
July 29, all charges against Ashley Strand are dismissed. January 26, 2023, Rick Wilkins is announced as candidate for GOP first vice chair of the Proven slate. First week of March 2023, 3 assault charges are brought against Lisa Wilkins, seemingly coordinated by Rick Wilkins, no relation. Notice a pattern? Here's the news. In that town hall, there were no Democrats. Okay? The whole discussion of whether we're infiltrated by Democrats is a distraction, and it's a silly fantasy. I don't think anyone who gives so much time and so much money and so much effort and so much energy could possibly be a Democrat infiltrator. That's not the issue. That room is full of Republicans, and Republicans who think they know better than you do. It's full of Republicans and Republicans who think their voice is a little more valuable than yours. And I'm not even saying these people are bad people. I think they're good Republicans who want to win, but they've been seduced by the self-ingratiating lie that there are compromises that must be made in order to win that are just too complex and too upsetting for the rank and file to be read in on. And they're the people who have to guide us and correct us when we step out of line in our ignorance. These are the people who have bought the lie that everything depends on what happens at the state level, and you have to be able to change things at the state level before you can change it at the community level, and that you need to change the system from within. And you need to hire experts direct from the swamp of Raleigh, like this fat tick a parasite whose extraordinary worthlessness I will deal with in the next teaser. Their vehemence doesn't come from the fact that they don't hold Republican principles. It comes from the fact that they're terrified the Republicans will lose if they don't play the game. This meeting was almost a mirror of the executive committee meeting in June of 2022. Because in this town hall, there's a lot of talk about Democrats having sent people into the party and people who were just there to disrupt the party and cause chaos and throw stones and blah, 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 blah. And at the end, Will Connect came out and gave a strong message for unity. And in that meeting, Will Connect made a big speech about the primary being over and it was time for everyone to unite and we were all on the same team. And immediately after he finished talking, Rick Wilkins stood up and attacked Melissa Mason's campaign. And that sends a very strong message. When the leader of the party exhorts the rank and file to work together, and then people who have position in the party stand up and undermine his message with impunity, it sends a very clear message that this is a two-tiered system. And even though both slates laid claim to the grassroots mantle, because, of course, that's where the vast majority of energy and enthusiasm is in the Republican Party, only one seemed to assert the right to have rules for thee, but not for me. And by the way, when a guy who regularly brags about being one of the biggest donors in the party stands up and directly undermines what the so-called leader of the party has just said, that guy is not the leader of the party. Will Connect is there to do two things. One, to make you feel great about being a Republican and to leap around like a little liberty gnome and preach party unity and say, yay, we're all together and we're all on the same team and there's no enemies in this room. And then two, to turn around and do whatever it takes in private to serve his rich masters, even if that includes protecting the most dangerous woke administrator in the county. The problem isn't that we're infested with Democrat infiltrators. The problem is that we continue to prop up the Uniparty hacks who run our party, no matter how many times they let us down. Why don't we have a Republican candidate for DA in every cycle? Why is Matt Rhodes the first Republican candidate for sheriff in 4 cycles? Why didn't we have a Republican candidate for mayor? Why are we recruiting Democrats to be Republicans on the city council? Why are we torpedoing the one actual conservative who ran for us for city council? And why do we keep protecting Dr. Charles Faust, the superintendent of schools? Once again, it was my friend Wayne Gibson who gave me the clearest and best perspective on this. At a meeting for precinct chairs and candidates last summer, Wayne Gibson talked to all of us about the social media push that the GOP was going to be doing through its website. I approached him after the meeting and said, hey, we publish a lot of blogs on Melissa's website, and we'd love your help pushing our message out there. And he said to me, well, we don't really like the message in your blogs. I said, well, why is that? And he said, the quiet part out loud, he said, because there are certain political action committees who don't like your positions, particularly the Fire Faust position. And I said, well, that's interesting, Wayne. I thought we were here to serve the voters, not PACs. And he said, PACs vote. And I said, PACs vote? And he said, yes, they vote with money. I wonder what PAC he was talking about. I wonder if it's the same PAC whose treasurer, who at the time was also the data person for the GOP, no conflict of interest there, told Melissa Mason to go f*** herself on the evening of the primary, whose husband was also the witness for Rick Wilkins during our court case, who hilariously refused to back Rick up on the fundamental claims of his case when I questioned him on them. I wonder if it's the same PAC that regularly sends people out to gossip online and smear and call people Democrats and call people up and spread rumors about people's sexuality and denigrate their religions. I wonder if it's that wonderful group of people. And I wonder if that kind of behavior is who we want running the GOP or even representing us. And how many people associated with Tide Turners are on the slate? 3? Not including Rick? Well, I feel pretty sure Big Money's going to be represented in our party. Your voice? Maybe not so much. Why is Faust so important to our big donors? Why is keeping him in office apparently more important than getting a grassroots conservative elected? I don't know all the answers, but I think it has something to do with this. This is a schedule from a New Hanover County middle school. It shows clearly that the SEL morning mental health check-in is the first part of every student's day. And I think this is directly connected to this. This is a screenshot taken by a whistleblower at Novant Health, showing an extraordinary and unprecedented spike in the number and duration of emergency psych ward committals for children under 18. This is a list of current cases from one day. Notice not only the extraordinary number of young children being admitted to the emergency room for psychiatric reasons, but in the column TT, notice the extraordinary amounts of time they are being kept. 203 hours, that is over 8 days. 125, 36, 10, 137, 137, 176, 324. That is over 13 days. What disturbed the whistleblower most about these numbers is that they did not come from the COVID lockdown period, but after. The spike in these numbers started during the lockdowns, but then sustained after the children had gone back to school. I suspect that many, if not most of these commitments came from administrators and not from magistrates. There is a mental health crisis among our children, and I believe it starts in the schools, and I believe it is manufactured. In the same way that the growing recovery industry in Wilmington creates an incentive against fighting the supply of the drugs that creates the addicts in the first place, is it possible that the government money that pays for the referrals that come out of the schools creates an incentive not to keep our children mentally healthy, but to make sure that they're unhealthy? Posed another way, how can a community be coaxed into accepting a woke agenda that is opposed to its most fundamental values? And how can the Republican Party be coaxed into defending the head administrator purveying that agenda? SEL solves this problem with its whole child, whole community strategy. This involves overcoming the moral outrage of a community by giving free stuff to poor people and business to rich people. This is from the NCDPI website. The North Carolina School Mental Health Initiative is a multidisciplinary partnership of stakeholders related to the provision of mental health services to children and youth. NCSMHI reflects partnerships across disciplines, including community health providers, educators, advocates, lawyers, university officials, and parents. So you click into the actual document, and you go down to the infrastructure resources, and you find the system of care contact list, and you go over to the coastal region, and you find Trillium Health. And you go down to New Hanover County. It's there. Now let's see what Trillium has to say about itself. Oh, look at that. It takes Medicaid. Scroll down, and right away you will notice Health Equity Council, the ideological buy-in. Let's see what else we got going on here. We'll scroll. Oh, Neighborhood Connections. Sounds like a community partner thing. Skim through here. Hey, let's check out some news, events, and training. Check out a news release here. What do they got coming up? Shoot down here and look, we got some more ideological buy-in. You bring us the business, we'll teach the vulnerable populations the magic words. And there they are. Looks like a public money bonanza. I wonder if most of the mental health referrals coming out of the schools are for kids whose parents are on Medicaid. This school mental health care initiative represents a huge amount of money. And given the likelihood that Medicaid expansion will pass this year, there's a lot more of it to come. Looked at from that perspective, doesn't the SEL morning mental health care check-in seem less like an attempt to take care of our children than to farm them? To gin up referrals that are going to be paid for by government money? And doesn't it start to make sense that the schools are being flooded with porn? Porn! Early exposure to which is known to correlate highly with gender dysphoria. Porn, which is addictive, which is known to inhibit development of the prefrontal cortex, which affects impulse control. Behavior issues? It affects your ability to concentrate. Studying issues? Behavior issues, you can't study, you get depressed, you act out. You need counseling. And the gin keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. Now, I don't know if Tide Turners gets any of its donations from Trillium or any of the other community partners who are part of this whole child, whole community scheme. But I do know this. There's about 5,000 people I do know who are going to start researching it right now. What up, Kenneth? Melissa Mason asked a great question during the campaign. Why is Faust so important to so many people in our party? I think you should ask Will Connect and Rick Wilkins. Here's the contact info. County chair at newhanovergop.org and contact@nhcproven.com.